She enters with that delicate smile, a fragile ornament that attempts to conceal the quiet implosion she carries within her chest. The eyes always betray the unspoken. They hold the sediment of stories she never dared to confess. You imagine yourself to be the author of something pristine and new, but in truth, you've been drafted into a labyrinthine tale whose denouement was sealed long before your footprints crossed her threshold. There is no innocence in this encounter. There is only the slow recognition that you are stepping into a dwelling built from memories that never learned how to die. When you stand across from a woman who has already tasted the bitterness of endings, a woman who has given life, who has unraveled under the weight of her own longing, you must first understand that what you meet is not merely a person, but the architecture of accumulated grief. The ruins have been carefully camouflaged. She will not show you the debris immediately. She will first entice you with hope. She will offer the sweetness of beginning, and you, eager to be the man who repairs what others have shattered, will taste it like a sacrament. You will mistake her yearning for a genuine invitation to build. But she does not want to build. She wants to be absolved. It is a strange theater of desire in which you find yourself. You think that your tenderness will serve as a balm, that your patience will be the proof of your worth. But you are only anesthetizing an old wound that refuses to close. Freud would have smiled that distant, knowing smile and whispered that the repressed will always return, sometimes as an accusation, sometimes as a demand, but always as a repetition. And so, while you attempt to love her with the sincerity of a man who believes in redemption, she will measure you against the shadows of the ones who failed her. You will not be judged for your own misdeeds, but for the crimes committed by ghosts. In this secret contest, there can be no victor. If you persist, you will not be applauded for your resilience. You will be regarded as proof that she can still attract devotion while never laying down the weapons she sharpened in the wars of her past. The relationship will become a performance, your efforts to please her, her efforts to remain unclaimed. This is the paradox. She longs to be loved without condition, yet she cannot surrender the armor she believes has kept her alive. And when you tire of this silent siege, she will pivot with the precision of a seasoned actress and declare that the fault was yours. You were too weak, too demanding, too blind to see how much she has suffered. Even here, in this space that aspires to clarity, the same dynamic plays out on a larger scale. The system itself cannot tolerate those who insist on tearing away the comfortable illusions. The algorithms favor distraction because reflection is too incendiary, too destabilizing. We do not offer illusions here. We cultivate the audacity to look into the abyss without blinking. And perhaps that is why this sanctuary may vanish. Not out of melodrama, but because a mind once awakened can never again nest comfortably inside the old frequencies of delusion. If this place dissolves, the insights will remain. You cannot unsee what you have learned to recognize. Some will scoff. Some will retreat to the safety of superficial explanations. But for those who can feel the stirrings of a deeper comprehension, there is no retreat. When you glimpse the machinery behind the persona, the games, the carefully curated images, you begin to understand how much of human connection is merely a battlefield where the psyche tries to avenge its own disappointments. The red flags are not invitations to compassion. They are evidence of a deeper pathology that craves not intimacy, but justification. Many men will not hear this. They will stumble toward the familiar altar, offering devotion to a woman whose truest desire is not union, but the confirmation that every man will fail her in the end. If you are listening now, it is because some part of you has grown weary of being conscripted into a story that was never yours to conclude. You have exhausted yourself in the futile hope that love alone can dissolve another's unresolved history. But love is not a solvent for psychic debris. Love is an encounter between two sovereign souls, and if one of them remains hostage to an unfinished war, the other becomes merely a function, a warm body to blame when the old wounds start bleeding again. Her first unspoken psychosis is the fantasy of the savior. It is not a romantic wish, but a silent compulsion. She dreams that some man will materialize to cradle all her sorrow, to endure every projection without protest, to embody the tenderness she was too terrified to grant herself. This fantasy is not a confession she will ever voice. It is a subterranean script that dictates her every test, her every accusation. And if you do not perform the role she has written for you, you will be punished with coldness, with withdrawal, with the subtle cruelty of being deemed unworthy. She does not see you as a man. She sees you as a necessary prop in the drama she must replay. You become the symbol of redemption she demands while never intending to permit it. Because if she were truly redeemed, if she allowed herself to love without the protective scaffolding of resentment, she would be forced to relinquish the identity she has spent years constructing. And that, more than any betrayal, terrifies her. So she will cling to her story, the story in which she was always too good, too loving, too forgiving, and every man, in the end, was not enough. She needs this narrative the way an addict needs the needle. It consoles her when the night grows too quiet, when the silence threatens to expose the truth that she has never learned how to forgive herself for the road she chose. The second psychosis lies in the disordered architecture of her attachments. You believe you are entering a partnership, a place where love might grow in the fertile soil of shared devotion. In reality, you are stepping into a triad. Her child, innocent, unknowing, has become the locus of all her unresolved longing. He is no longer simply a child. He is the vessel into which she pours everything she can't risk offering a man. He is adored, protected, idealized, less from love than from the guilt she dares not articulate. You will sense this displacement. You will feel it in the invisible boundaries that constrain your role. Approach too closely, and she will accuse you of intrusion. Withdraw, and she will condemn you for cowardice. Try to guide or correct, and you will be branded as oppressive. This is not partnership. It is a performance in which you are permitted only to applaud her motherhood while silently accepting your own disposability. Psychoanalysis teaches that unresolved guilt inevitably seeks compensation. Her guilt is an ancient ache, a knowing that the life she fashioned came at the cost of desires she could never truly claim. And so, the child becomes the surrogate partner, the proof that she can still love purely, that she is not as fractured as she fears. You, by contrast, become the ever-present threat, the man who might reveal how far she has drifted from her own heart. You will learn that in her eyes, there is no crime greater than disrupting this fragile arrangement. Any attempt to assert your place as a man will be interpreted as an assault on the symbolic shrine she has built. You will be tolerated only so long as you remain deferential, silent, willing to vanish when your presence evokes too much discomfort. The third psychosis is the conflict she bears between her past pleasures and the image she now must project. She once surrendered to desire, moved by impulses she did not question. She lived fully in the body, mistaking that abandon for liberation. But in the quiet hours, the contradiction emerges. She wants to be sanctified, to be regarded as worthy of reverence. And so she invents a persona, mature, poised, immaculate. Yet beneath that cultivated mask, her psyche festers with the knowledge that she is not as pure as she pretends. You will be conscripted into this charade. Every affectionate word you offer will be measured against her private ledger of guilt. You will be required to validate her without ever glimpsing the scars. And when you fail to sustain the illusion, when your love cannot heal what she refuses to confront, she will transform you into evidence of her old suspicion, that no man can be trusted to hold her without judgment. It is easier for her to punish you than to reckon with the possibility that the wounds were self-inflicted. Easier to claim that you are inadequate than to acknowledge that her own choices came at a price her heart was never prepared to pay. So she builds her barricades, fortifies her narrative, and demands that you revere her as if she were untouched by error. The fourth psychosis is control. To compensate for the chaos within, she exerts dominion over every surface of your life. She will script your gestures, your silences, your confessions. She will claim that this vigilance is born of love, but it is fear, raw, unprocessed, corrosive. The more you comply, the less she trusts. For compliance confirms her suspicion that the masculine is ultimately weak, unworthy of respect. You will discover that even your smallest deviation, a moment of withdrawal, a forgotten courtesy, an innocent mistake, will be magnified into proof of betrayal. Nothing will ever be enough. The goalposts will always move, because in truth, she does not want intimacy. She wants predictability. She wants a man she can choreograph like a puppet, so she never again feels the terror of losing control. But in binding you, she strangles any chance of real connection. The final psychosis, the most insidious of all, is her hidden devotion to failure. She has made suffering her sanctuary. In her private mythology, every heartbreak was a holy wound that elevated her above ordinary women. She draws sustenance from her disappointments because they absolve her of the need to change. As long as she can claim that no man has ever stayed, she is spared the unbearable work of examining why she cannot remain open when love finally arrives. You will recognize this when you see how she recoils from peace. Offer her constancy, and she will create friction. Offer her loyalty, and she will invent doubts, because peace exposes the truth she cannot face, that she is the author of her own exile. And so, she engineers failure again and again, each time convincing herself that this repetition proves her virtue. If you have the courage to look unflinchingly into this abyss, you will see that you were never her lover. You were her alibi, her justification, her proof that every story must end in sorrow. And you will realize, perhaps with a sorrow of your own, that no amount of sacrifice can redeem a woman who needs her wounds more than she ever needed your heart. You begin to understand that her sorrow is not a passing storm, but the very climate in which she feels most alive. She has woven her disappointments into a shroud she cannot remove without losing herself. You stood there believing your devotion could warm her, that your patience could dissolve the frost she carries. But the truth is simpler and more cruel. She never wanted to be warmed. She wanted to be witnessed in her suffering, to remain untouched in her martyrdom, to prove again that no man could ever reach her. And in this revelation, you finally see that love was never the currency of this exchange, only validation of a story she refuses to stop telling. You can stay and be consumed by it, or you can step back and allow her to keep her illusions intact. In the end, this is not about saving her. It is about refusing to vanish inside a narrative that was never yours to believe.